Hey guys, Robbie here from CrossFit South Bend. Today we're going to talk about gray area foods. So, what are gray area foods? Well, on the one hand, we have foods that tend to be overall health promoting. These are foods that I would say you have the green light for generally, in almost all cases. So, quality protein that's grass fed, pasture raised, from a local family farm, lots of healthy produce, vegetables mostly, but also some fruit, healthy fats, things like coconut, macadamia nut, avocados, ghee, so on and so forth, herbs and spices, nuts and seeds. Those are all generally health promoting. Yes, there are certain conditions where some of those things, say, if you have an autoimmune condition, eggs can be problematic, or nightshades like potatoes, eggplants, and hot peppers. But generally speaking, the things in that list tend to have the green lights. Then, of course, there are things on the very other side of things that have the red light, where we say, in general, you shouldn't be having them at all unless it's a really, really unique occasion. So, processed foods, sugar, soda, alcohol. I would also throw in there most grains. Again, there are certain exceptions here that we'll talk about, but wheat would be at the top of that list. Most standard dairy that you would get at stores, that's corn-fed and antibiotic-laden and from a factory farm, and your seed oils, things like canola, cottonseed, grapeseed, margarine, so on and so forth. So we got the green light foods, we got the red light foods, and then we have the things in the middle, the gray area foods, or you might say the yellow light foods. So what are those things? Those are things where there is published peer-reviewed research to suggest that these things can be healthy, but it's only if they're tolerated. So what does that mean? That means that if you can eat them without having some particular symptom that's particularly associated with them, they can be healthy for you. So let me take the paradigm example here. Paradigm example here is quality dairy. Now, we've done a talk in the past about how dairy actually can be healthy if it's grass-fed, if it's full fat, from a local family farm, as opposed to an antibiotic, laden feedlot. So dairy can be healthy, but that's if you tolerate it. So how do we figure out if you tolerate it? Well, it depends on a lot of different things. So, a lot of times with dairy, people can get head congestion or allergies, they can get skin issues, they can get digestive issues, and it's also going to depend on the type of dairy. People tend to tolerate butter and ghee very, very well because it's very low in lactose and whey and casein, which are the dairy proteins that can be problematic. Whereas milk, people tend to tolerate not so much. So dairy can be very healthy and nutrient dense if you tolerate it. Let's take another example. What about chocolate? Raw cacao actually has one of the highest antioxidant profiles out there in terms of health benefits. That being said, most chocolate that you find isn't raw cacao. Like if you ever tasted a 100% cacao bar, it's pretty gross. So 70%, 80%, they're going to have some sugar in it. Can a square of dark chocolate every once in a while be okay? Yeah, potentially, if you tolerate it. If it doesn't make you eat the entire bar, if it doesn't lead to skin issues, if it doesn't lead to digestive issues. So you might be saying, what if it does lead to these issues? What do I do then? Well, the decision is really up to you. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Some people say, things like, well, life isn't worth living without dark chocolate or red wine. And if that's your attitude, then, that's your attitude. There's nothing wrong with that as long as you're aware of the consequences. Other people say, I had someone who I worked with who she had a little bit of yogurt and she had a rash on her skin every time she tried yogurt or any other dairy for the vast majority of her life. So it wasn't worth it to her. So we've talked about grass-fed dairy. We've talked a bit about dark chocolate. Really anything above 70% is what's the gray area food. Anything below that is going to be in the red light food. Red wine, I would put in that same category. Legumes, to a certain extent, they're not really a green light food, but they're not really a red light food either. So beans, peas, and lentils, with the exception of soy and peanuts, which I would still probably put a bit more towards the red light. Things like white rice, non-GMO corn, and quinoa, and gluten-free steel cut oats. Those could be kind of the gray area of the grain category. Things like that. Gluten-free treats, which you should not mistake for health-promoting substances, but that might be things to have occasionally that you can have as part of a celebration, but that won't really upset your stomach. Those are going to be your gray area foods. And again, most of them, with the exception of the gluten-free treats, could be health promoting. So the red wine, the dark chocolate, the grass-fed dairy, quinoa, the legumes, they can be healthy if well tolerated. And again, well tolerated is going to mean that they don't cause these symptoms. And if they do cause these symptoms, it's something that you have to decide for yourself, is the juice worth the squeeze? All right, guys, I hope you have a better understanding now of gray area foods. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.